All right, time for another draftphysics.com, debatephysics.com also. But the debate, again, is just so meager, foul, useless. The adversaries cannot make a reasoned argument. And so it just ruins all the fun of argument. And, it takes all the, it's so cheaty. It's such a cheat of the process. These little glib tritisms that they type as a response to an entire video explaining right from the sources, using multiple examples, and then they just double down on this stupid nonsense. And yeah, it's just so dishonest. So Pyrrho's just such an irritating case. I mean, he's been this piece of bacteria, okay, that's been haunting my channel since its inception almost. And it's just this annoying, obnoxious naysaying, and there's absolutely no substance to it. It's just this rhetoric of perversion and distortion. There's lots of people doing that. They try to turn me into all kinds of things because you can pull a few of the one sentences out of my statements here and there, and those sentences can sound mean. Okay, but no, the context isn't mean. So it is just such bullshit. All right, so anyway, just a spring and weights. Okay, make sure the heavy one can move, slide, or roll 6 feet. Now, see, it just doesn't make any right there. You're just saying you didn't get the part about how distance makes this huge difference in terms of how things lose their velocity, and slow things lose their velocity much quicker than fast things. All right, the small one will go further. So whatever this small one is, okay. So you can't even use terms like mass and velocity. All right, and measure the velocity in the 6 inches after leaving the spring. Based on what kind of velocity, what kind of object? Again, it's just such nonsense. But go ahead. The whole video is basically just isolating all the instances where their physics hasn't done any of these experiments. None of them. They haven't proven 4 pounds dropped 1 foot is the same as 1 pound dropped 4 feet. In 300 years of proselytizing this fantasy, they haven't bothered to do any of these elemental experiments. None. They can't link to anything. They can't do any of it. And then this guy just says, oh yeah, well, it'll come out my way, sure. No, it won't. Oh, just amazing. Update. What the fuck is this? What update? Okay, I haven't read this yet, so. Also, it's possible to calculate the expected change in speed along the object track. Yeah, it's possible to measure it, and it's exactly as I pointed out. It's exactly what Galileo pointed out, okay? That the speed increase and decrease has a 1, 3, 5, 7 ratio. You lose speed and you gain speed in moments of time at those amounts of distance. And so you'll be traveling half the speed after you traveled 3/4 of the distance. So you're going to lose your energy completely disproportionately. It's too amazingly stupid. Okay, speed along the object track if you want to take that into account. So again, calculate the expected change of speed. What is this? The whole point of doing the experiments is to evade any kind of bullshit. I calculate it to be, we want to measure it to be something. Amazing. If both objects move much faster than the distance right by the string, so that's this string. If both objects move much faster than the distance right by the string, I guess that should be a spring, that you use to get the velocity, this experiment will show good enough results to see if the momentums start out the same before they've lost much to friction. So again, you just ignored the entire argument. And the way springs work. Here he says it here. Is it really your position this experiment can't be done? I made it clear that, yeah, I said it can be done, but you got to be careful how you're doing it. You can't, there's all kinds of springs in the world, right? There's springs that compress, you put a pound on it and it compresses 1 millimeter. And then there's a spring you put a pound on and it compresses 9, centimeters. So you obviously have to use the right spring for the condition to be able to do any measurements. You need high-speed cameras. All kinds of stuff is necessary. And the fact is you have to do the experiment well. And your physics hasn't done it at all. I mean, not at all. They don't pay any attention to any of this foundational science. They've never done the experiments. They've just written the axioms in their Bible, and then they just preach the axioms, and everybody's supposed to believe it. Everybody's supposed to believe. For fuck's sake, do you actually think I'm going to believe that you think it takes 25 times the fuel to go 5 times faster? You really think I'm an idiot? I mean, what the fuck? I think you believe that? No, of course you can't possibly be that idiotic. So what are you defending? What is all this pretense of making a counter argument? Do you really think so, you fuck? I mean, I can't believe you're that fucking stupid to think it takes 25 times the energy to spin a motor 5 times as fast. Not possible. Anyway, so then the ice answer. Ice answer. It doesn't work by making your weight less. Obviously, your weight isn't less, but your weight, okay, how much you're going to weigh to a scale is less. So it's just an absolute fact that you will weigh less. The scale will read less. So he really doesn't believe that if I put a scale in a road, okay, and say it was 10 feet across, right, and you rode a bicycle or something across it, that the weight the scale would register wouldn't change no matter how fast or slow you went across that part of the road. So you're on the road here, you go across the scale, and then you're back on the road again. And he doesn't believe that it matters how long you're on the scale will decide how much you weigh. Yeah, too ridiculous. All right. It doesn't work by making your weight less. It doesn't change your mass. It certainly does change your weight. So I will argue that, of course, you weigh less, because weight is a measurement. Weight isn't something you have. You have mass. Weight is what you have when you're moving. So if you move into a scale, you will weigh something. You will apply a pressure to the scale, and it's exactly the same thing in gravity. Gravity is doing exactly the same thing. It's giving you momentum. You're going to hit the scale with your momentum and deflect it with the pressure of your momentum. So again, none of these arguments will be countered. Okay. The ice takes time to break. So, oh, you mean it takes time for the ice to absorb pressure? Everything takes time to absorb pressure. All pressure is applied over increments of time. You can apply a large pressure over a long period of time, or a small pressure over a quick period of time, or a big pressure over a short period of time. That's the difference between something breaking, something not breaking, all of that crap. Something bending rather than breaking. Amazing bullshit. You move on to the next ice in a similar amount of time before that happens. The next ice, there isn't really any next ice, it's the ice itself is in chunks, in terms of how it can even absorb like if you were a pinpoint, you probably wouldn't break the ice either. You just poke a hole in it. So if you could apply the pressure over tiny, tiny pieces of area, you might not break the ice either. But it is the fact that the ice has a certain amount of cohesion, and over a certain surface area, you're going to apply a certain amount of weight or pressure and break through the ice. All right, similar amount of time before that happens. So again, this obviously, and that's exactly the point, because the time is the fact of the gravity. So, I can draw this stuff and it's just a waste of time, right? Because they won't deal with the actual arguments. I don't think there's any way to convert any notion you have of how it works. And again, this is a guy who worked in astronomy in some fashion. I don't know exactly what fashion, but in some fashion. And so he's going to tell me he doesn't understand this simple argument. All right, and this is what proves MGT always works. MGH is just an emergent piece of nonsense that only works in special circumstances. All right, so MGT is the real answer, the thing that gets the right answer no matter what. So again, if I have an object and it's going 500 miles an hour at this point, and it goes into the Earth, and this takes 1 second. Okay, all it's going to be going when it hits the Earth is 509. That's it. All it's going to get is 1 unit of velocity, okay, for this entire distance. And this distance could be a half mile or something. And if I drop something from that same location and let it fall, and it takes 10 seconds, let's just say for the sake of arguments, it takes 10 seconds. Again, it's going to be going 100 when it hits the ground, almost. All of its energy will come from gravity because it was in it the proper number of units of time. It takes time to collect the gravity. That's the simple solution, and it's a simple truth. This formula works. This formula can't do this problem. It can't do it. It won't get the right answer because the answer is going to be 9.8 is all this one's going to get in increased velocity, and this one's going to get 100 as an increase in its velocity. Same exact masses, same exact location and gravity. They're not going to get the same thing. MGH won't give you the right answer. It's just a fact it's going to fail. It's going to fail dismally. All right, and the other version of this, which also I don't see how you can apply any other reasoning to the facts than say, yes, it's obviously a time-dependent force. I mean, how else can you explain? I have a point A in space, a point B in space. I'm just going to travel point A to point B. All right, and that's it. I stop at those 2 locations. I'm not moving. All right, and I'm just going to say, okay, well, obviously the faster I get to point B, the less I'm going to get bent. And the slower I travel to point B, the more guarantee it is that I'm going to end up hitting the Earth because I'm going to fall, okay, more. All right, so if we draw the fall lines in time, okay, because it's going to be the time you're in this gravity, they get longer and longer and shorter. How much distance you fall, it's going to change based on how long you're in the gravity. And it's just as clear as it could be that it's basically a push force, okay, and it pushes at 9.8 meters per second of velocity per 1 second. Clearly, that's what it is. Clearly. And this science denier, this truth denier, this fact denier is going to keep promoting and making excuses for a Bible that makes no sense, that says things that just aren't true. All right? Bats aren't birds. Okay? It's just factually not true. It's just pathetic. All right, see what the last sentences say. You don't have to have less weight, and that doesn't happen. So again, he's saying you don't have to have less weight. Weight is your speed, your momentum. Okay, weight isn't your mass. And you clearly will have less or more momentum, okay, based on how long you've been free falling. And if you shorten the amount of time you're falling or pushing on the Earth, you'll shorten how much you weigh. It's just a fact. If I jump on the scale and jump off the scale really quick, I'm not going to, if I'm running and I step on a scale, the scale's not going to read my real weight. Now, unless I jump in the air and then land on the scale. Okay. The force of gravity is the same at all moments. So there's no such thing as all moments. So what does that even mean? So every millisecond, the force of gravity is the same. I'm getting 9.8 meters per second every millisecond. No, I'm getting 9.8 meters per second of velocity, and it takes a full second for that to happen. So it's just a denial of absolute fact that it takes a full second to acquire 9.8 meters of velocity. That's how long it takes. You won't be traveling 9.8 if you only fall for a half second. and if then it's 4.9, and it's only it gets smaller and smaller number the less and less time you allow gravity to affect the object. So it's absolutely not true. There's no such thing as moments in here. There's no moments. You have to use an explicit amount of time. You say less than a second or you say more than a second. Well, if you're in less than a second, it's going to be less than 9.8. If you're in more than a second, it's going to be more than 9.8. Those are the absolute facts. You're just you're so dishonest. Okay. Except if changing distance from the Earth. Yeah, so we know that changing the distance doesn't change the 9.8. That it's basically 9.8.4 or whatever the full, you can do the rest of the decimals within the, maybe even a mile. I mean, it's probably more than that. It's at least that, it's a significant amount of distance. It's still 9.8 because you're really talking about the diameter of the Earth, which is 4,000 miles. So obviously it takes a pretty significant change in your distance before you're going to really start eroding the gravitational force. So for at least a mile, it's 9.8. So the distance doesn't change how much per second you gain, and you know better than this nonsense, really. Such a terrible comment, but I can't expect any more. He's also just a coward. I'm obviously not going to offer him money because he's really stupid. But just sort of points out how desperately weaselly these responses are. So, I only referenced about 15 different subjects in the video. The Eddington experiment, why? It's a 5-minute experiment, costs $50 a satellite time. You don't need an eclipse, and you have 400 times better resolution, and we're supposed to believe no physicist has even thought about the idea of maybe we should do that. It hasn't even occurred to them to repeat one of the most famous experiments in physics that's never been successfully repeated outside the margin of error. So it's not like everybody's already done it, okay? It's clearly nobody's really done it well. And from space, there's a 400 times advantage. A 400 times advantage. I mean, it's just a ludicrous contention that this is good physics or good science. They're afraid to do their own experiments. They're afraid to drop 4 pounds 1 foot and 1 pound 4 feet. Because they're afraid the answer ain't going to be what their prediction, their most predictive physics in the history of mankind, isn't going to have the right predictions. And if they tested and saw let's spin a motor and see if it takes 25 times the fuel, it ain't going to come out their way, and they know it. That's why we don't have the experiment, because it doesn't come out their way. Simple answer. It doesn't work. All right, and it proves against their theory, not for their theory. And all the rest they have is they won't even show you a damn thing. All this quark crap and all this other shit. They're still showing you 1956 photos of a positron. So in all this time, they haven't gotten a better picture of a positron? Amazing bullshit. Just amazing bullshit. This is what you get as a reply. This pat... I love Jesus. Why don't you just say that? Why don't you just say, look, I'm a religious kook. I have a whole philosophical thing where I think spirituality is locked up in objects, and your theory means there's no spirituality, and there's no, if the electrons and the protons are the only moving matter in the universe, and they're only being pushed by a mechanical force, well, there's no place to hide all my spiritual shit, So I can't believe what you're arguing, because I have to be able to have all my little hobgoblin friends have to have a place in the universe. I have to have some place to put the Smurfs. They have to live somewhere. It's just childish drivel. Ugh, pathetic. All right, well, some other guy, since I'm here, I might as well get to it. Asked, about a video on the double slit experiment as presented by 60 Symbols. So they never really did a 2-slit video as far as I can tell. And he has some reference to some video. Well, yeah, I remember some magnetism video or something that maybe the guy went down the basement. I don't remember every fucking video I made. Anyway, so it's just... But the point would be, look, that video, if I made a 2-slit video to 60 Symbols 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, I've learned so much in the last 4 years. I mean, the theory of understanding how it works has gotten so much better that I almost wouldn't want you to watch a 4-year-old video because my arguments are so much better in the newer videos. But whatever. All right, so I guess we'll leave it there. But just disappointing. Ugh, shit. I can't believe that there's just nobody who can rationally, this isn't a complex drawing, so just explain how some other mechanism besides it being a time-dependent force is causing the bending in the object. How can you bend the same amount regardless of speed? You can't. You have to bend dependent on how long you're in this amount of force. This is the field of force you're going through. It's like two magnets going by each other. The magnets go by each other really quick. They're not going to be pulled into each other. They go by each other really slow. They're going to get pulled into each other. Oh, come on. Well, anyway, just amazing bullshit. I find it amazing. This part of this whole thing really surprises me. I mean, I really didn't think this would be the problem. I mean, I'm actually figuring out how magnets work and actually, dissecting the two slit and finding out what the catch is and doing. That's the hard part, I thought. And I did that hard part. And now the easy part is, well, here I show you how well it works. And, and this should be the easy part where you say, yeah, good job. But no. Instead, I get this obnoxious Bible readings, So you have a whole theory of evolution, and this is what they throw back at you, is God is great. Yeah, fuck you. I mean, your science sucks. Unevidenced fables. It's pathetic. Disgusting. Gross. Just shows how low character human beings are. I just didn't think they were this despicably stupid and dishonest, but they are. Clearly. Despicably dishonest. And they suck. But part of me says, well, of course they suck. I mean, they can't even figure out the whole animal thing. They can't figure out anything. They're just cruel, stupid. They just keep, they don't fix any problem. They never cure anything. Everything is fixed with, the worst way possible, the worst glue you could use. They figure out how to apply the worst glue possible, Anyway. Till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot. Look what they have running for president. Just amazing. Amazing. Fucking amazing. It could be this bad.